Thumbelina. The witch's living room was full of candles of all shapes and sizes. There was a faint smell of vinegar in the air. At a large oak table right in the centre of the room sat the witch, and opposite her was a rather nervous lady. "How will this barley seed help exactly?" asked Jane nervously. "You'll see," replied the witch with a wink. Jane looked at the tiny seed and then back at the witch. "So I just plant this in a pot?" The witch nodded. "And magical things will happen, yes?" When Jane arrived home, she filled an old flower pot with soil from the garden and made a hole with her thumb. She dropped in the seed and covered it over. Then, as she watered the soil, she read the spell the witch had scribbled down. "Earth, rain, time and pain. Good fortune there and back again. Happiness, this seed shall sow. Love and magic, help it grow." Jane's life had not turned out the way she had expected, and she knew that this was her last chance to have a child of her own. It was a nervous time. The flower pot sat on the windowsill for a week. Jane was about to call the witch and ask for her money back, when suddenly a green shoot appeared. A week later, there came a bright purple flower. Then, one morning, the flower gave a tiny pop, and out tumbled a tiny little flower girl, who was no bigger than your thumb. Jane was so happy. She named her, the girl, Thumbelina, and made her some elegant clothes from brightly coloured silk. Thumbelina slept in an empty walnut shell filled with comfy cotton wool. She was a kind girl who loved spending time with the animals in the garden. One sunny morning she was chatting to Sebastian, a young rabbit who lived in a nearby burrow, when a large toad hopped by. The toad quickly decided that this little flower girl would make the perfect friend for her son Harry, who was always lonely and sad. That night, while Thumbelina was sleeping in her walnut shell, the old toad stole her away. The next morning, Thumbelina woke up, looked around, and was shocked to find herself in the middle of a river on a huge lily pad. She hadn't yet learned how to swim, so she had no way to escape. "Hello," croaked a large toad from next to her bed. "I'm Harry. Mum said you're my new friend." Hello," said Thumbelina, trying to be polite. "But where's Jane? And my house? And my friends? And, well, everything?" "You live here now," croaked the toad, who broke wind and then disappeared into the river with a large plop. Thumbelina started to cry. But lucky for her, the fish decided that this was a rather cruel thing to do to such a lovely young flower girl. They quickly nibbled through the thick root of the lily pad so that it floated away down the river. No more Harry the Toad, thank goodness. But just as things were looking up, a large mayfly called Stacy swooped down, picked up Thumbelina, and flew up to the top of the tallest pine tree. Stacy had taken a shine to Thumbelina. "Pretty flower girl, I like you. I will bring you honey from the sweetest flowers. All you have to do is be here whenever I return." Excuse me. My name is Thumbelina, and who do you think you are?" "I'm Stacy," said the mayfly. "I don't mean your name," said Thumbelina. "I mean, what right do you have deciding what I should or shouldn't do?" Stacy didn't know what to say to that. Thumbelina was very cross, and rightly so. So she folded her arms and stamped on the tree branch. "Why, You're no better than those silly toads." "Wrong. I am much better," said Stacey. "I can fly. Can toads do that? I don't think so." "You're missing the point," said Thumbelina angrily. "I don't know you, and I don't like you already." Just then, a few of Stacey's friends arrived. "Who's this?" said one. "What an ugly creature," said another. "Do you think so?" asked Stacey. "Disgusting," said a third. "Yuck." Well, luckily for Thumbelina, Stacey listened to her silly friends, and not wanting to be unpopular, flew Thumbelina down from the tree and dropped her back on the ground and then flew off. "Well, at least I'm not on that lily pad," said Thumbelina to herself. "But on the other hand, I seem to be completely lost." Not knowing where she was or how to get home, Thumbelina spent the whole summer alone in the woods. She quickly made friends with the bees who brought her fresh honey to eat, and she drank the dew from the leaves every morning. But summer does not last forever, and soon the weather turned cold. Being so small, a single snowdrop felt like a bucket of snow on Thumbelina's tiny head. She had to find somewhere warm and dry, and after much searching, she found an underground burrow. It was there she met a young field mouse called Freddie and an old mole called Victor. The three got on very well, and Thumbelina felt lucky to have met such friendly creatures. But one night, Freddie and Victor started talking about the birds. Thumbelina was shocked at how mean they were about her feathered friends. She had made friends with many birds and found them all to be good-natured and rather beautiful. Time passed, and the coldest part of winter had given way to warmer weather. Thumbelina had made a coat of feathers and began to venture outside. One morning on a walk to fetch water, she was very sad to find a dead swallow on the ground. Poor bird, she thought, and drew closer to touch the swallow's soft feathers. Then her heart leapt with joy. She could feel a faint heartbeat. "You're alive," she said out loud. The swallow was too large to move, so instead she gathered leaves and covered him to keep him warm and rested. Every day she would bring out fresh water and drip it into the bird's beak. Sure enough, day by day, the swallow's heartbeat grew a little stronger. Then, one morning, the bird was gone. Thumbelina was looking at the empty pile of leaves where the swallow had been when she felt a cool breeze on her back. She turned to see the swallow perched on a low tree branch. "Swallow, you are well," said Thumbelina happily. "I am, thanks to you," the swallow replied. He explained how he couldn't fly as fast as the other swallows and had fallen from the sky. He couldn't remember anything else. Thumbelina shared her story of how she had been stolen by the mean toad and then by Stacey the mayfly, and how she had ended up in this burrow. The swallow listened patiently and then offered to take her home. But Thumbelina didn't know where home was, and also that would make her new friends, Victor and Freddie, sad if she left. "I cannot just go like that," she said sadly. "Very well," said the swallow, "but I must go. My family and friends wait for me." The swallow bid Thumbelina a fond goodbye before flying away. Tears welled in Thumbelina's eyes as she watched the swallow disappear into the horizon. I'm afraid to say that things in the burrow grew much worse after that. Freddie and Victor became very bossy. They both demanded that Thumbelina fix their clothes, make their beds, and bring them all of their food. Thumbelina had been grateful for Victor and Freddie's kindness through the winter, but now she felt as if this was a little unfair. She was sat outside the burrow feeling very sad and lonely. There was a noise overhead and a strong gust of wind. Thumbelina's heart leapt with excitement. She turned around to see a sight that made her grin from ear to ear. It was her friend the swallow. "Pleased to see me," said the swallow. So pleased," said Thumbelina. "This is no life for me. I don't want it. Please take me away with you." The swallow nodded, and without another word, Thumbelina climbed on his back, and with a flap of his powerful wings, they soared into the sky. The wind whipped and blew her hair wildly. She had never felt so free, and did not think for a moment to look back. She only wanted to think about what lay ahead. The swallow flew high over the mountains and the canyons, and Thumbelina held on tightly, hiding beneath his thick feathers to stay warm. They flew for days until finally the swallow came to rest on the shoreline of a blue lake alongside an old palace of dazzling white marble. Nearby, perched at the top of the tall trees, were hundreds of swallows. "We are home," said the swallow, "and I have a surprise for you." Thumbelina climbed down and looked around. There were beautiful purple flowers standing proudly in the thick grass. "Thank you, swallow. The flowers are beautiful." But the swallow shook his head and smiled. "That's not it. Look." Thumbelina looked up to see that in the middle of each flower was a tiny face looking down at her. "Say hello to the flower spirits," said the swallow. Thumbelina had a tear of happiness in her eye. A tiny brown-haired girl with kind eyes and a warm smile rushed up to Thumbelina and hugged her knee. "My name is Ava May," she said. "Hello, I am Thumbelina." Ava May gave Thumbelina the biggest hug. "Will you stay?" she asked hopefully. "Do you know," said Thumbelina, "I think I just might." You're probably wondering if Thumbelina decided to stay there and live happily ever after. Well, I can tell you that she did. How do I know? A little swallow told me.